everybody. Welcome back to the View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded business owners and entrepreneurs get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own view from the top. So glad you're all listening in today. My name is Kevin, also known as Wally, and I've got Aaron, also known as Big A, ready to bring the heat.
Come on, big man. Come on. You know what? This is time of year. Things are blooming here in Nashville, and I've got my Barry White voice today. So I may just break out in song. I don't know. But anyway, Robin kind of likes it. She says it's sexy. So I hug her and kiss her bye, in the mornings, and she goes, "Come on, baby. Talk to me."
As long as that's not associated with a cold, you're probably just fine. But my voice usually goes low when I got a cold, and that's not good for sharing. So.
No cold. It's just stuff's blooming, and it's giving Big A the Barry White syndrome today. Man, good to see you. How you been?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
You got a little sun. Look at that sun. You get your face is like blistered. You need to put sunscreen on when you go outside.
I'm not blistered. I don't know what you're talking about. Speaking of blooming stuff outside, man, there is here in Tennessee anyway, stuff's really starting to leaf out and the blooms are coming out. And with that comes yard work that needs to get done. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you do all your yard work yourself, or do you hire it out, and why?
It's kind of a mixed bag. When we sold the house that we had before we downsized and moved here, I did all the work outside because I loved it. And we had big front yard, and I'd get on the tractor evenings and at night I'd go cut grass, and I really enjoyed it. But then it got to become a real thing. It was taking like 8 hours to cut my grass and trim and all that. And I hired it out. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like a mortgage payment. And so a few years after that, Robin and I bought a smaller place. We scaled back, and I sold everything that had a motor on it. I'm like, I'm never doing yard work again. Like, I'm done. And so I hired a company. Ron Maston does a great job for me, takes care of our yard. But, however, let me say this. I enjoy getting out there when I want to, like picking up sticks. I live in the woods, and so there's always little branches falling. We've got 8 acres around us, and I'm actually cleaning the woods out, cutting 2 inches and smaller diameter trees out. So I love to see the big trees. So as a hobby, I enjoy doing that. It sounds so selfish, Kevin, when I say this, but I only want to do it when I want to do it. Like, I don't want to cut the grass every week and go out there. Financially, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I can coach somebody and make enough money to pay for having my yard done. And at the same time, though, there's something manly about getting out there in your yard, right? Planting shrubs, cutting trees. Yeah. What about you? Like, I enjoy it when I want to.
I'm kind of in that camp as well. I used to do it all. We lived same kind of you, lived in a bigger space, had more acres to mow, and man, I used to actually cut wood myself. We had a wood burning stove, an outdoor wood boiler.
I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you, I'll draw the line.
It was great exercise.
That's why I'm not doing it. I'm not swinging that axe. That'll kill a man.
Yeah, I'll tell you something manly about running a chainsaw and a ranger through the woods stacked with wood. Anyway, used to do that. And then we didn't necessarily downsize when we moved into a neighborhood down here in Tennessee. It's at 3/4 of an acre. But the yard stuff, sold my big zero turn kind of thing. Still have a little push mower. But man, for what they charge down here for a good grass cutting, it's I don't have to worry about it. The guy shows up every week, does the thing. Now, I will say, when it comes to things like landscaping, bushes, flowers, mulching, I'm in a big project right now. I'm doing putting a pool in our backyard. Actually,
it looks good too. For those that hadn't seen it, it's looking good.
And so we're doing that project, and we decided to do stone on the landscaping versus wood around there, just because I don't want a bunch of wood in my pool. So
your kids are going to throw that gravel in your pool, just so you know.
Yeah, probably the grandkids anyway. Probably, but that's all right. Yeah. They're going to have to learn how to swim then, huh? So anyway, doing those projects, I really enjoy. I think it's because there's a creative part of it. The things that are mundane, if I have to really break it down, things that are mundane, I think I trick myself sometimes too. Maybe this isn't trickery, but I'm a capitalist, I think. And I love sometimes giving people the opportunity to do work.
Sure.
It helps me, it helps them, feeds the economy. So I'm good with that. And I don't know if that's we're actually going to talk about growth mindset today. So I don't know if
Mm,
that is a growth mindset or
oh,
not,
maybe, maybe.
but that's how I look at it. That's part of it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty excited about this talk today on growth mindset. And we talked a little bit offline, and then we said, "Hey, let's just have our pre-discussion online
It'll be
today."
pretty
And
raw. This is going to be pretty raw.
I know, because I'm partially excited and I'm partially scared to talk about this subject because we're going to need some feedback from the audience because I'm not 100% where I fall on this.
Mm.
And so here's the bottom line question as we get into talking about growth mindset. Is this something you can develop? Like, there's fixed and growth mindset. Carol Dweck does a really good job. By the way, it's a resource we want to suggest to you at the end. But I'll go ahead and start out. She lays out a very good argument both ways with growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I want to start really by telling a little bit of a story, if I could, Wally. When I was young, like we were broke. You know what I'm saying? Like, broke. We had zero influence, right, with anybody. We were very to ourselves and our family. For the most part, I would say uneducated. Just high school. That was it. No college. We didn't really have any connections. We didn't have any network.
Mm.
Like, we didn't have anything. Like, nothing. Like, zero. When I look back and think about it now, I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like, what a rough start." But I remember sitting at our kitchen table. We lived at 701 Evergreen Trail, corner of Neely's Bend Road and Evergreen Trail when I was a kid, right? We moved there when I was in about the 4th grade. And I got a job at the bread box when I was 8 years old, not too awfully far from there. And then I got a real job when I was 13 years old. And it was about that time my mom sat me down in the kitchen and she said, "If you're ever going to have anything, you're going to have to go for it." And that really stuck with me. I thought about it. When I turned 18, I had an opportunity to go in business for myself. And I came in and posed it to my mom and dad. And my dad goes, "No, do not do that. Absolutely not. You do not need to go in business for yourself. It's hard. You don't have any money. You don't have any influence. You don't have any connections. Like, no, do not do that." I said, "Wait a minute, Dad, listen. I've got an opportunity, these two businessmen, to go into business." And my mom goes, "Yes, you should." And man, my mom and dad got in a fight about it right there in the kitchen while we were sitting there talking. And my dad got mad and stormed downstairs and went out to the
Mm.
garage to fool with his boat. And my mom said, "Sit down." So I sat down. My mom said, "Sit down, you sit down." You know what I'm saying? So I sat down and she goes, "Listen, we've never had anything our whole life. Like, we've been broke. I've been broke as a child. We've been broke our whole marriage. Like, we don't have anything, just the bare necessities. And you're never going to have anything unless you go out on a limb." And she said, "I mean, go out on the limb just before it breaks." And I'm like, "What? I can't believe you're saying this." She said, "You're never going to have anything." She said, "You've got to develop the mindset." And she used to say this little saying, I've said it so many times: "Can't, couldn't do it, but could did it all." Kevin, something happened in my spirit sitting there at the kitchen table on Evergreen Trail that day when my mom told me that. And I said, "You know what? What have I got to lose? I don't have anything now. So why not go for it?" And I think that was really the catalyst that instilled the growth mindset that I have today.
I love those stories about going back and thinking about those things that influenced us over time. I want to read some definitions. I don't have these memorized, so I'm just going to read these out. But
Sure.
the difference between you chose a growth mindset at somewhere along the way. So we're going to dive into a little bit here, a little bit later. Like, can you choose or are you born with it? Right? We're going to
Yeah,
talk
that's where
about
it's
that. Yeah,
dicey. It's dicey
I
for
know, I
me on
know.
that.
But let me read these definitions. So a fixed mindset is the belief that one's abilities and intelligence are fixed traits that cannot be developed. People with a fixed mindset tend to avoid challenges, give up easily in the face of obstacles, and view feedback as a criticism of their abilities. A growth mindset is the belief that one's abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. It's essential to have a growth mindset because it allows you to approach challenges and failures with resilience and a willingness to learn. Helps you embrace opportunities for personal growth and development. So, in the definitions, I'm a words guy. So the definitions it talks about, it mentions in both of these, it says is a belief. So it says a fixed mindset is a belief. A
Right.
growth mindset is a belief. So I go back to my origin story a little bit of being a kid, similar to you. Um, I grew up in I was, parents got divorced when I was 5, unfortunately. And I grew up with my dad, mostly with my mom and my stepdad. And I saw my dad a couple times a week. It was a good situation as far as divorces go, but I still don't suggest it. And, but anyway, we lived in a 14 by 65-foot trailer. And both my mom and my dad, blue collar type workers, didn't really have a lot. I remember going to Sears back in the day when it was, I mean, that was quite a few years ago now, but going there and like getting those winter two Velcro shoes, man. And
Yeah.
I remember getting the pants that had Velcro at the top and not Velcro, but elastic at the top and
Yeah.
elastic on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I was not sporting the hottest trends in high school, let me tell you. And I remember what that felt like. But we had I had a good group of small friends. They were taller than I was, but had a good small group of friends that we hung together in high school. So that didn't really, I don't think that influenced me too much. But the belief part is where my mom comes into play, and that's that she never she never prohibited me. She never really downplayed too much. She was cautious, right? She was worried about me. But man, I started like you at young 13 before I had working papers, started mowing lawns, started
Sure.
delivering papers, started cleaning hotel rooms. I started mowing lawns and then at a hotel and the cleaning lady didn't show up that day. So the person that owned the hotel asked me to clean rooms. I was like 14. Clean anyway. But I knew then like there was something inside of me that I was like, man, like I want to I want to improve, be better, not because my parents weren't happy, not because there wasn't joy in their life. It wasn't about improving for money's sake. There was just this belief that I had that there was there was more. And throughout time, I think we both have
Yeah.
learned what
Sure. There
more
is.
could be, right? Different seasons, different stages of life. I think we learn to develop in maturity what more means. There's a healthy and an unhealthy, I think, side of that for sure. But yeah, that's kind of fixed and growth. But I love that idea of someone to believe in me, and so that helped me have a belief, a way of thinking that there was something different, not even always better, but something different that had more meaning, I think, for me in my life. Um,
I don't know
what?
where this mindset morphs into your personality because we're
Mm,
developed. There's situations that happen that create the lens by which we look at life, certain circumstances that happen that you build these filters, right? And you develop your personality at a very early age. And so I'm confused where it crosses from the choice, the belief that I can change my mindset into the filters that I've developed at an early age, and it's my personality.
mm.
And we even want you that are listening out there to respond back, right? Email us back, comment, in the comment section. Just let us know your opinion about that. But I hate it sounds so fatalistic to say that if you've got a fixed mindset, that you can't cultivate that into a growth mindset because I'm not a fatalist. I believe that, man, we can do this thing, but it is so hard because there's other areas of my life. This is a silly thing, but it kind of connects with this conversation. Like when I was a kid, we couldn't have bicycles hardly at all, no swing sets, no coffee tables. My dad was scared to death I was going to get hurt, and my
Mm.
brother and sister was going to get hurt. And so over time, I learned that, and I drove my kids crazy, with that same kind of mindset. I was always afraid they were going to get hurt. And then my grandkids, I was so thankful when my youngest one's now 7 years old. I don't have to worry about the stairs anymore. But
The stairs. I was gonna say
I
your
know, I
nemesis.
know.
My nemesis is the doors. Like,
Yeah.
I'm always
Yeah.
afraid there's gonna be a finger lopped off on
Yeah.
the other side.
Oh, I know. I closed the car door on Holly's finger when she was 10 years old, and
No!
she's never let me forget that. But
No.
my whole point in this is if you're raised in an environment to where your surroundings is always this fixed mindset, like we don't have the belief that your abilities can change. You know, you're fixed. This is the way it is. You're just in this environment. It's the hand you were dealt. I hate that. I hate that mindset. It's like, man, listen, I couldn't. My mom was the same way. You know, she was like, she came from a very poor background and she got out and worked hard. She taught us to work hard. And now we've had a little bit of success along the way because of that persistence, that determination, that grit. And it's that growth mindset. Like, I don't know what it is today, but I'll figure it out. And so I'd love to hear, from all the listeners out there, what your opinion is on fixed mindset. And are you able to grow that into a growth mindset?
Yeah. Real quick, even before we get going, I want to follow up to what you just said, but just email us pod at viewfromthetop.com. Open, pause right now. Open your email up on your phone, and just type in pod at viewfromthetop.com and give us a comment about growth mindset. So to kind of follow up to what you just said, Big A, this whole idea of a belief, can it be changed? Where I fall into this trap, I think, is that I judge people.
Mhm.
And, when you say, can someone change? Well, I think there definitely is a sense of how we're raised, our personalities, I think are what God's given us. But I also think that they can be influenced by our environment, whether that's a good environment, healthy environment, or an unhealthy environment, or some combination of both. I think we take on personality traits. The size of our personalities can become negative or positive, and a lot has to do with our influences of our situations, environment we find ourselves in, being, growing up, high school, um, all those things. And so,
Mm.
but I tend to judge
Mm.
people when I see them and go, "Oh man, they just have a fixed mindset, and that's just where they are, and they're going to have
What could
less
they
in
say
life."
that you would judge them negatively? Like, what is something
I
when you
think
say
they
you
wouldn't they
judge, what do
though?
they
I mean,
do?
and isn't that actually a judgment? Like that's how it feels sometimes. I feel guilty for thinking that way. And then I wonder to myself, well, just because I have a growth mindset and in the pursuit of, we're going to talk a little bit about why it's important to have one. And
Right,
maybe we ought to actually jump in there.
right.
Why it's important to have one, because we can talk and judge about whether someone does or doesn't. Is there a benefit to having one? Is there not? Like I see people that
Yeah.
maybe have a fixed mindset and they seem to be happy. They're okay with the way life is.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something, we gotta stop right there because I'm gonna be honest with you, if we're gonna talk about the benefits of it and surrounding ourselves with people with a growth mindset, it's pretty draining on me to be around people with a fixed mindset. Just get it out there. If we're talking transparent here today, it's a Debbie Downer kind of thing to me. Robin and I are very careful about the people that we hang with. We were very intentional about the people that were around our children. We're very
Mm,
intentional about the people that are around our grandchildren. I can't always pick family, but I can pick my friends. I can pick my inner circle. I can be very intentional. And I remember, and I certainly am not going to call the name on this podcast because a lot of people listen to this podcast, but there was a couple that was in kind of our inner circle, if you want to call it, they're our closest friends. They didn't last long, like,
mm,
at all. Like, nobody invited them to do things. It was always like you just sucked the air out of the room. They come in the room, there's always something wrong, that victim mentality, nothing's right. This is the hand they were dealt. They're never gonna get, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, just shoot me right between the eyes. What in the world is going on?" Slowly but surely, I think they got the word. They moved away from our church. They moved out of our community. And I was like, praise God. I'm glad they're gone. Like, because this was killing me to be around people like that. I want to be around people that are
mm,
like, hey, this is a bad situation. Like, I give you that. I don't want to take that away. But if we do this, this, and this, maybe we can right the ship. Maybe this is something that you haven't thought about that we could try. That sense of encouragement, right? They feel that empathy for you, but they have encouragement on the heels of it. they're right behind you saying, "Come on." Because listen, I've been through some really tough stuff, right, over my career, and I've talked about a number of the things where I was in a really bad spot emotionally and mentally, and I was like being isolated. And my buddies came along and said, "No, man, you're not doing that. Like, we're going to lunch. We're going to talk you through this. We're going to talk you off the cliff. These are things that we need to do." It's that growth mindset. You can get over this. There's going to be a brighter day on the other side. And when I think about that, that growth mindset really allows you to approach challenges with a greater sense of enthusiasm and motivation. And that's what I've been modeled my whole career by friends of mine that are very close. And
Do you
so
think
I
it's
think,
do you think it's an idea of what's possible? Like if you have a fixed
yeah,
mindset, even if it's not negative, like you use the example of a couple that were, complainers, and that's a whole nother level of fixed mindset. You can,
it,
I think, yeah, that's like the extreme, right? And I'm with you on that, by the way. Like, I'm like,
yeah.
are you kidding me? How much longer do we have to sit here? But
I got a headache. Let's go home. So it's
yeah,
like,
but there are folks that have a fixed mindset
mm,
that they're just kind of in uh in an okay pattern, right? Life's not terrible, life's not great, but
that's
by not
neutral. To
having
me, that's just as bad. Like living in pause. That's like living in neutral. My mom used to say, "You're living just close to the bottom as you are the top." And
yeah,
like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to live in that. It's okay. It'll do. I'm like, man, isn't there so much more in life that we can enjoy if we'll just change our mindset to say, "I wonder what's possible." Dan Miller,
mhm,
one of my favorite guys on the planet, been a mentor to me for 20 years. He would always just smile in the worst of situations, and he'd go, "I wonder what this makes possible." And I
mm,
was like, "Oh, man, I gotta develop that kind of mindset," right? It's that enthusiasm. It's contagious. When you're around people like that, it's
yeah,
contagious. And yeah, or they go away. Also, you know what? The growth mindset also helps you understand that learning is a continuous process and that you can always improve your skills and your knowledge. You're like, I know just enough to know that I don't know much, but I want to learn more. Right? It's just this constant quest to up level. And I love that. It's like when you get to the plateau, you get to the pinnacle, you think, then you really learn, man, I really didn't know much at all. And a whole new door opens and it presents a whole new set of options and opportunities. And I think that's where that growth mindset comes in.
yeah. That's we talked about learning as a continuous process. I think one of the cool things about having a growth mindset is it requires other people. Like you can say, well, I have a growth mindset, but I read books and I take courses and I do these things for myself. Well, who do you think created the books? Who wrote the book? Other people,
Yeah.
right? Who created
Sure.
that material?
Sure.
Like it's almost impossible, I think, to kind of to
Right.
have a healthy growth mindset if
Yeah.
if others aren't involved. So I love
Mhm.
that idea of relationships and how that involves others as
Because
well.
we get down. Here's the thing, Wally, is that there's times in our life, no matter what kind of growth mindset you have, no matter how resilient you are, how positive you are, life throws us curveballs. Like I'm
Mm,
dealing with some situations right now. If I allowed myself, I'd want to crawl under the bed, right, and hide for a while. It's just like, no, this is going to make something else possible. We're going to be better as a result of some of these circumstances and situations that we're going in right now. It gives you the ability to bounce back from those setbacks and challenges when we allow our mind to go forward in a positive way. But with the fixed mindset, well, I knew they were going to get sick and they're probably not going to make it. And I'm probably not going to ever make money. I lost my money in the stock market and that's just the hand I'm dealt and everything. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, man, if you would look at it through a different lens and really think about having an innovative and a creative mindset that opens up new ideas and perspectives, things may change differently for you. And so that's what we try to do in Iron Sharpens Iron all the time is instill that everything is figure outable mindset. That's our fourth
mm,
core value. It's like, I don't know what it's going to look like exactly, but I do think that if we change a few components and we really approach it with this resilience, that we're going to figure it out and it's going to be good. And
yeah.
it's just so much more enjoyable to live your life that way rather than gloom and doom.
I'm with you. So how do we know which mindset we have? Like, what are some indicators
Mm,
that would kind of make us lead us to believe, okay, I've got a growth mindset
mm.
or I don't? Like, what are some of those things? Do you think?
Well, I think when you start talking to people, you kind of pick up and you recognize within the conversation, are they a person that's willing to embrace new challenges? And a person with a fixed mindset, they're comfortable, right? They're in a
Mhm.
spot, they don't want to move. We always resort back to familiarity. And so a person with a fixed mindset, they really don't want to embrace new challenges. They're like, I don't know how, like, this is not good, but I know how not good it is. And if I go this other route, I'm not sure what I'm getting into. And a person with a growth mindset says, hey, we're not going to know until we try. I think another thing is people with a growth mindset are very persistent. Like they don't give up. Now, I'm not saying there's not a time to give up. Don't hear me wrong. Like there is a point in time where you go, you know what? I made a bad choice and this is just not going to pan out exactly like I wanted. But man, that's way down the road. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
you've got to,
even then, you could fail forward, right? You don't have
yeah,
to.
yeah. You could say I
That,
learned.
that's a
I
growth
learned a way
mindset.
for
It's
right, right. I learned a way for it not to work. The Thomas Edison analogy is way overused, but he learned what 10,000 ways for the light bulb not to work.
Mhm.
And so, man, what a great growth mindset. What if he hadn't pursued his real interest and desire? We may be in the dark doing this interview today, but another thing is people that practice self care really understand the benefits of taking care of yourself. Now, I'm just going to be honest as always, and I say that a lot when I'm feeling the pressure, but that's not something that I've practiced a lot over time. Like I'll let myself go in regards to not going to the gym like I should, not doing some of the things that I should be doing is practicing self care. Like for a period of time, I wasn't real good about taking a Sabbath, and resting. I was like, man, that's another day I can figure it out. So, and I've had to learn. And so that's just from having, trusted advisors around me that could see these blind spots and point it out to me and say, Big A, you need to practice self care more. You need to be more intentional about how you take care of yourself. Lee Cockrell was a fun interview, one of the guys that ran Disney for about 15 years. And he said that he works out 7 days a week. And he said, I can still wear the same clothes when I graduated from college as I can now at 85 years old because I take care of myself. He said, I couldn't take care of 20,000 employees. Couldn't take care of my family and my grandchildren if I didn't practice self care. He had a huge growth mindset. I think a few of the other things that is we've always got to be learning new skills.
yeah.
If we get complacent and we're just like, hey, this is the way it is, the world's going to bypass you pretty quick, and you're not going to keep up with things that you need to. So I don't know. What about
Yeah.
you? What are some other things that you think that uh, we can determine whether we have a fixed mindset or growth mindset?
Yeah, I think the idea of a lot of times we focus on the destination, and a fixed mindset is like, I'm there or I'm not. But a growth mindset considers the journey as part of the process,
Mm,
and I think you think about it differently. Um, I think you mentioned earlier. I think we talked about books and things, but I think people with a growth mindset are you could say inspired by others, but I think they're looking to others, right? They're that multitude of counselors from scripture that it tells us, whether you're going to
and when you
peer.
have a fixed mindset, it's like I don't want to hear from anybody else,
No, you
right?
don't need
It's
anything
like
else.
I
It's
got
like,
my thing. I don't need anything. I know the hand I'm dealt. I know what I'm doing, and I don't want to learn any new ideas, and I don't want to be inspired by other people. And
yeah,
the more I talk about this, the sadder I get for people with a fixed mindset. So we've got to reorient our thinking.
yeah. I think it goes back to people that have that, what's possible. I really like that, that what's possible mindset versus just accepting the way things are.
Don't you love learning also though? Isn't it pretty cool when you're studying or you're reading a book or watching a TED talk or listening to a podcast or you're reading a blog or reading a great book or you're talking to another mastermind brother and he teaches you something and you're like this invigoration comes up within you. You're like, man, and then you want to share that. Then you
Sure.
get on. We do what's called full cups, where we share things in our mastermind that you're anxious to get into a group to share, like because you want to pass along these things that you're learning to other people with the growth mindset. And then it's just like, man, I want to be around that guy because he's brings the light, right? He brings words of encouragement. He brings what we call full cups, right? These things that he's learning each and every day. And what that does is it really encourages those that you're around, because then, like, you don't go to people when you're trying to figure out something with that victim mentality, that fixed mindset. You go to people and say, hey, what do you see is possible with this scenario, this
Yeah.
situation?
Let me say something about that though. Different personalities, I think, respond to this differently. So you're one of those guys that, you can keep taking information in all the time. And yeah, eventually do you get a point where you need to, a season of like, okay, I just read 15 books and listened to 25 TED Talks. And like
Right,
at some
right,
point, I'm the person that like I'm about halfway. Like
right.
I love to learn. It's one of my core needs in my life is that continual
Mm,
learning,
mm.
but I also like to apply. So I have to meter that for myself. And so there may be some people listening that they're just like, I ain't listening to 25, 25 TED Talks. I ain't
Sure.
listening to 15 books. I don't even know what 15 books. I think the point is you start with one, right? We'll talk about and we get to the end kind of how we can move forward, but
Sure.
I think it's possible. If you start to get around people that encourage you, that all those things we just listed, right? We listed those things, people that have a growth mindset, they're way more fun to be around
Yeah, they
in
are.
general than people that don't.
Yeah.
So find people that are, surround yourself, right? I
Well,
think
what do you
that's
think are some of the reasons that men today don't have a growth mindset? Like, what are some of those things
well, I've kind of
keep
already
us from
mentioned
doing?
one. I think there is it's a limiting belief, but I think it's a belief that people can have that our talent and our intelligence are fixed. Like I am the way I am, I know what I know. And fixed mindsets can also be developed over time. You may have more of a growth type mindset in your 40s, but by the time you hit 60, you may start to think, well, I'm kind of heading over the other side of the
Careful
other side
now.
of the
Wait a
hill.
minute. Hold on. Don't
I'm
get
not
carried
saying you
away.
have one.
No, no. Listen, I'm just hitting my stride, right? I'm
I'm
in
just
the
thinking the
second level.
temptation, based on my
You're right.
observations, I think
No,
the
you're right.
temptation is can be more as you get older and kind of get quote unquote uh, set in your ways. I think another one would be this is interesting story. So raised our daughters and they're all married now and we're going to be 30-year anniversary coming up. I think we've talked about that before. So our daughters all got married at 21. That wasn't planned, and you may think that's young, you may think that's not. I mean, it is what it
That's
is. They
2 years
married
after me
great
and
guys.
Robin. Robin was
Yeah, one
18.
year
I was
after us,
19.
right? So they made the choice to want to get married and grow up together, and I applaud
Right,
them for that. They're doing well.
right,
So
right,
anyway, um, as the girls were coming through their teenage years, I had experienced what being in a peer group, we call 'em masterminds,
right.
and at that time, I had tried a couple other ones out and didn't hit the right fit for multiple reasons I could talk about. But someday I'll tell a story about how I found Iron Charts and Iron Mastermind and got introduced to you. But along that journey, it opened up new perspectives for me that I hadn't seen before. I was running a business then as the CEO, and we were very successful. We were plateauing in some things, and so I needed different perspective as I was plateauing in the business. I learned a lot from other guys around me. I recognized that with my wife, with Sonia, that as she was going to be, the girls were going to be leaving, that we started being intentional about, what was life like when we become empty nesters? Like, no matter what we choose, even if we prepare, there's probably still going to be some unknowns and some things. And so for her, I really encouraged her then at that stage of her life to find a group of other women that she could be around with the intention that it was a growth mindset type group. That it wasn't just, hey, we get together and have coffee and everybody's happy, which is a good social place to be, but I really was I really wanted to protect her. This can happen as much as guys with women for sure, but I really want to protect her against the gossip mill and getting into a group. So she found a group of women for that season, that period of her life that were able to, help her um, be exposed to concepts and techniques and things that she wouldn't have been exposed to elsewhere the same way I had experienced those things. And so I think a lack of exposure is one of the reasons why
Yeah,
men don't have a growth mindset. What
yeah.
about you?
They're just not around it. Yeah,
No.
100%. The other thing is I think that traditional gender roles emphasize that being strong and not showing any
Mm.
sense of vulnerability or willingness to learn from their mistakes keeps them from being around other people. They're like, "Hey, I don't wanna be vulnerable. That's weak. I'm not gonna do that." And they don't wanna hear about their mistakes, right? Because 'Cause they're like, "Hey, this is the way I am." And so they don't wanna change. It's that fixed mindset. I also think that the fear of failure or the perception that seeking out feedback from other people is a sign of weakness. Now, got to come clean for a second. Like, I'll do that in personal development, in professional development. But physically, I don't know why. I guess because my
Mm.
dad was a man's man. Like, I won't ask for help around my house. Like, I've got a history of a bad back, and so it goes out periodically, and I'm laid up for a week or 2, and I'll still get out there and, squat down and put the leaf blower on and blow leaves, and I can't hardly walk, and I'll pick up stuff, and Robin's screaming at me to put it down, and she goes, "Call your son-in-laws, call one of them," and I'm like, "I got this," and so there's that manly man feel, like, so
No,
I
no, no,
got
no, no, no. They
areas.
call that stubbornness. What
The
they call that.
stubbornness, I
You
don't
you
know what.
told me the other day that you were pulling some bushes out, and I was like, "Hey, do you need any help?" You're like, "No, no, I got this."
Yeah, I know that's what I'm saying. I don't know what that is, and so I need some accountability around that. But other areas like at first I didn't recognize the value of going to guys and saying, "Hey, how do you see me?" I even got a letter that I write to people, and there's about 8 or 10 questions on it where I ask how you see me in certain areas. That's dangerous to do because when you really put yourself out there, people will tell you the truth when you ask. But it helps me because other people see you differently than you see yourself.
Mm.
And you really need that feedback from other people saying, "Hey, I don't want to miss the boat here. I don't want to get to the end of my life and go, he was an old codger." And it's like, no, man, let me fix that now, right? Let me turn the ship around now so I can be all that God called me to be for my wife, for my kids, for my grandkids, for my colleagues and peers. And so I've got to carry that over into getting feedback and help physically, as well. But the other thing is that the belief that talent and intelligence are fixed and can't be improved. I think that's where men stay. They're like, I don't really believe that I can change. And I think that you've got to have a sense, whether you can go to the level that we're talking about, because I think I've got a really, really high level of growth mindset. And then other people are less, and other people are far greater than me. Right. So I'm just saying, I think we can lend towards growth if we choose. I think we have to first be willing. If you're listening to me talk right now, you may be that guy that's identified with that fixed mindset. I want to believe that you can change a lot, whether you can come all the way to where some other people are just off the chart. But man, wouldn't your life be so much better if you were to make strides in developing a growth mindset?
Just the thought of the difference that it can make in someone's life to start changing the way that they're thinking, and the opportunities for growth that brings, opportunities that come their way that they didn't even know was possible before, because they just started thinking and pursuing things a different way instead
Yeah.
of accepting status quo. Like, that just gets me excited. Like, just
Yeah.
thinking about it, like, man, one of the easiest, I mean, it's hard, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but changing your mindset, like your belief system,
Yeah.
working, it's hard work, right? Like, this
Right.
is work. It's not, yes, you can go to conferences, you can spend a lot of money. At the foundational root of this, it's not expensive. This isn't like something, well, if I got to
No,
change from a fixed mindset to a growth
no, it's
mindset, all of a
an
sudden I got to lay
attitude
out tens of
adjustment,
thousands. Yeah.
right?
It literally is a mindset shift to begin with.
Wally,
And
I'm not gonna call his name. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. I'll go safe and not call his name. But there was a guy that was at our live event a few years ago, and you introduced me to him, and great guy. But he had a little bit of this fixed mindset going on related to his
mm,
business, and you told me some of the things that he said, and I just went and sat down at the table with him. Didn't even know him that well, and I just laid it out there, and we got into a little tussle over it. And I really pushed the envelope with this guy. I mean, really pushed this guy, saying, "Hey, if you would just change your mindset around this and implement some of these strategies, I think you'll see a big improvement." Man, I thought he'd go away. I thought he would quit ISI. I didn't think he would stay. Man, he has become a workhorse. This guy is amazing now. The effort that he's putting out, uh, he is going to the nth degree, and it's outside of his comfort zone. And he admits to me all the time. He'll text me and he'll go, "Big A, I want you to look at this YouTube channel that I've started." He said, it's just really taken me to the next level. But man, and now he's getting all this traction. He's getting these people following. It's been good for his business. It's been good in his marriage. It's been a really effort that he's put forward to help with his mindset with his children. And it's just encouraged. I'm sitting here talking myself into it after a 30-minute interview. Maybe you can develop more of a growth mindset if you're, but see, the key is he was willing.
mm,
See, that's the thing. He was willing to take a chance.
mm. It's a good word. So, how can we close this out today? We would think about some ways to adopt a growth mindset. Like,
Mm.
what are some takeaways that we want the guys listening to take away?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, you've got to really embrace the challenges and view them as opportunities for growth and development.
Mm,
I think you've got to sit back and take an evaluation and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm listening to Big A and Wally, and that's me. I was that guy at that live event, and maybe that if I do some of the same things that he did, maybe if I embrace some of these challenges that people lay out for you and view them as opportunities, and say, what can be the worst thing that could happen? Like it won't work, and okay, so let's adapt. Everything's figure outable. Let's change it." I think the other thing that you've got to do is you got to emphasize the effort over the innate talent. Like just because you've got talent or intelligence, you've got to think about the effort that it takes to put out. There's Corbin is the ball coach for Vanderbilt, very highly regarded, and he says, I can teach you to catch a baseball." Okay, he said, "I can do that." But he looks for people that have the desire. He looks for people that are willing. He looks for character. He looks for honesty. He looks for integrity. And he said, "Those are the things that I have a harder time teaching you. I can teach you to catch a baseball." So it's the same way with this growth mindset. You may not have the talent that you need currently, but your willingness, that effort overrides that to a point where it catches up, right? You've got to be willing to cultivate this love of learning and a willingness to try new things and to be willing to at least embrace it periodically. Maybe not in every decision that you do, but I just want to encourage you today that if you'll accept a level of constructive feedback and you look at it as an opportunity to improve, and then you embrace these challenges, I think it will really help you. And then just take a few minutes each day to practice self reflection and really identify areas where you can improve and adopt just a small portion of a growth mindset. Those of you that already have this growth mindset, it can go further. And, you can teach people around you the things that you've learned and invite them in to making these small incremental challenges. And so, yeah, that's what I want to leave you with today. Just embrace it, look at it as an opportunity, cultivate this love of learning, and then enlist constructive feedback from other people that can help point you in the right direction.
Hey guys, thanks for listening in today again for this episode from View from the Top. We're so glad that you're here listening in. A couple of tools that were mentioned. We first of all, we'd love to hear from you. Email us pod@viewfromthetop.com. Give us your feedback. All about this idea of growth mindset. Are we right? Are we wrong? Are we on the right track? Are we way off the rails? We'd love to hear from you. Let us know, pod@viewfromthetop.com. Big A in the episode today also alluded to a list of questions that he hands out to people to help get a true look in the mirror of not just what he thinks about himself, but how others perceive him, people that he trusts. And the guide for that is actually called Am I Real? And you can go to viewfromthetop.com/am I real, AMIREAL, viewfromthetop.com/am I real, and download that today. So have a great week. We'll see you next time.